Well, they're basically saying two wrongs make a right. The Minneapolis Public Schools says because there's been past discrimination in this country, then they are going to discriminate right now. That's why they made an agreement with a teachers union there in Minneapolis to lay off white people before they lay off any people of color, regardless of their experience or their seniority. Minneapolis Public Schools, they're defending this agreement now, and they're not backing down. And Kevin, and white people are going to be laid off first if this goes through.
Yeah, Tom, they're arguing that it's a necessary measure to remedy the effects of past discrimination. On the other hand, former Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, he slammed the agreement as both racist and illegal, saying this is another example of why government unions should be eliminated. Joining us now is Roshini Rajkumar, attorney and host of the podcast, The Crisis Files. Good morning, Roshini. How are you?
Good morning, and I'm sitting here in Minneapolis. I can tell you I rarely agree with Scott Walker, but I absolutely agree with that line you just said, Kevin.
Tell me, you live in the community. Did this just erupt with parents and members of the community? I would think if this happened here in Detroit, it would be all anyone is talking about.
Right. Well, here's the thing. It isn't all everyone is talking about. They really should be. There are eruptions in certain groups, right? I mean, parents, anyone who cares about the law should be absolutely crazy over this because I don't see how it could pass legal or constitutional muster. And it's really, but Minneapolis is a strange place these last couple of years. I will tell you, as someone who lives here, as someone who saw one of the police precincts burn down not far from where I live, it's really kind of crazy. And what's happened, Kevin and Tom, is wokeness has kind of taken over Minneapolis. And hopefully the courts will see through some of that. Look, I'm a brown woman. I want everyone, and not only people of color, but everyone to be treated equally. And the only way that happens, the only way that the two of you and I can be treated equally under the law is if everyone is treated equally under the law. So this is just an abomination to me as far as the law goes.
How did the agreement come to fruition? Did they have to have a vote on this amongst members?
Oh, yeah. And the other thing is the teachers union here is very strong. And I don't have any kids in the public schools now. Our kids are grown, but I hear from some of my running partners who have kids in junior high and high school just how crazy of a time it is to be a parent in the Minneapolis public schools. I mean, look, I feel for the schools. I feel for administrators. COVID really was a hard hit on all public schools around the country, especially in Minneapolis and St. Paul. They've lost students to private schools that decided to allow kids to just keep on going to school through COVID times, did their own safety measures, but allowed kids to still go. And a lot of parents said, look, I'm going to send my child to a private school so they can just keep learning. And so that took away a lot of the student population from Minneapolis public schools. And every time you lose a kid, you lose state funding. So there are a couple different things going on here in the state of Minnesota. Legislatures really need to figure out this public school funding piece and then all of this around civil rights. What's really difficult for me to understand as both a lawyer and a person of color is we don't get better rights and more rights and equal rights for people of color by taking away and discriminating against white people. I mean, it just, to me, it's simple logic, but not everyone kind of goes along with that argument here, Kevin and Tom.
No, and by the way, the unions, I don't know of a teacher union that is not exceedingly powerful. That's true, I think, across the country. Another argument that they're trying to make here is that these teachers essentially need to look like their students. There's a higher rate of black students in the district than the number of black teachers. Does that argument fly? I mean, is that evidence of discrimination?
Well, I mean, I can see the point to that. I can understand it. But the fact is, what was it, something like 60% of the students are people of color in Minneapolis schools. 60% of the city of Minneapolis is not a person of color. So we still have a minority in the city of Minneapolis that are people of color. So there are a couple different things. We're doing a disservice to children by saying to them, you know, if we have a choice, we're going to lay off a more experienced white teacher, and too bad if that makes your education suffer. I don't think any parent or any citizen who cares, even if they don't have kids in the system, want that to happen. I mean, teachers are taking hits all over the place. The last thing we want is less qualified teachers in the Minneapolis public schools. So really, you've got to start way back in getting in college and pre-college, high school, getting people of color involved, getting them to go the teaching route. Hey, here's a thought. Let's pay our teachers a little more. Maybe they'd be interested in going into teaching. So no matter what race you are, teaching is a viable career option.
Yeah, qualifications matter. By the way, I did not look like my first grade teacher at all. She was a redheaded female, and I never complained about it. When asked about past discrimination in Minneapolis, a very northern state, mind you, they say, well, there are fewer black teachers in proportion. We talked about that in the general population in general, but there's a lot of other qualifications to be a teacher. So shouldn't that be the push? Listen, if there aren't enough black teachers or people of color in the teaching profession, should we make that effort to really provide them the qualifications they need to get in?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And here's another thing, Tom. Diversity comes in all stripes, right? It's not just the color of your skin, it's your gender identity, your sexual orientation. These are all things that also could be attributes of having some diversity and inclusion in the ranks of Minneapolis public school teachers. So it doesn't only have to be about the color of your skin, but I would like to think that we as adults and the administrators of the Minneapolis public schools want qualifications and smarts over anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, in sort of conjunction, continue to recruit, really get out there, don't be lazy, and recruit from all different communities. It's not going to change overnight, but this whole sort of trying to deal with past ills, this is not the place to do it. Our students are going to suffer.
Do you feel like Minneapolis has done a good job in trying to do that, to try and recruit, to try and make up for past discriminations in other ways, other than getting to this point where they say they'll lay off white teachers who have more seniority if someone has to be laid off?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think they are trying. I don't know if there's a gold standard in this. I would not give Minneapolis Public Schools the A star for the gold standard in really trying to fix all of these things. But in general, I feel for them because public school education in our country has taken such a hit since, Kevin, you and I were kids, right? I went to a public school system in the Minneapolis suburbs. It was one of the best in the country at the time. So public schools have really taken a hit. Legislators and others, including parents, have turned their backs on some of the public school systems, and Minneapolis has fallen victim to that. So it really does start with the legislatures of all of our states to say, look, it's kind of guaranteeing in our Constitution that public schools are something that we as a country put value in. So let's put some resources into that.
Yep.
And that's what I would like to see this argument go.
Yeah, this whole issue, I mean, it's illegal under Title VII, right, of the Civil Rights Act. You can't fire someone based on their race or ethnicity, black, Asian, Hispanic, white. All people have civil rights, correct? So is this just definitionally illegal?
It is. It's prima facie illegal, or like right on its face. I don't see how any case, I mean, first of all, they're going to get lawsuits left and right. So this will be interesting to watch. I'm sure we'll talk about it again in the future, but this is not the right road for the Minneapolis schools to go down. And I can't believe it. And I really hope no other cities in my state or in your state or anywhere in the country try to do this, because it just it just completely clashes with the law.
Yeah. It does. Well, we appreciate you explaining it to us. Roshini Rajkumar, she's a political analyst, of course, a legal analyst, and also the host of the Crisis Files. Great to talk with you again. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, guys.